Legacy is the byproduct of authenticity. The black sheep doesn't seek to be legendary, it happens because they never stopped being themselves. Welcome back. I'm Adeline, 11 times published author, and this is The Black Sheep Becomes the Goat. By the time people call you a legend, they've usually forgotten or never knew how many rooms you were kicked out of just for being yourself. They see the platform, not the exile. They admire your clarity, but never studied your confusion. And what they call legacy is almost always the byproduct of something simpler, quieter, harder, refusing to become what they wanted, and choosing to stay exactly what you are. Today's episode is about that exact phenomenon, how authenticity, when practiced long enough under pressure, becomes something more. It becomes reference material. It becomes generational impact. It becomes legacy. Not because you aimed to become an icon, but because you refused to be a copy. Most black sheep don't set out to be leaders. They set out to survive. They set out to breathe differently in a room where the air felt weaponized. To think differently in a family where conformity was currency. To feel things others buried. To ask questions others avoided. That first act of defiance, choosing yourself in a system that profits from your suppression, is the seed of legacy. Legacy doesn't start with followers. It starts with fidelity to your own soul. Before anyone believes in your message, you believe in your knowing. Before anyone quotes you, you walk alone. Before the stage, there is the silence. That's where authenticity is forged. And make no mistake, it is forged. Being yourself in a world that wants obedience is not a gentle act, especially when your family was the first enforcer of that obedience. They wanted you to be a mirror, not a map. They wanted their image reflected, not your individuality revealed. But authenticity has a cost. And you paid it early. You paid it when you didn't belong. When you were blamed. When you were scapegoated, silenced, underestimated, mislabeled, or left out. But you also kept going. Because deep down, you knew the lie. You knew that peace wasn't in pleasing them. It was in permission given to yourself, by yourself. And that internal permission to speak, to leave, to grow, to see differently is the exact thing that starts building your legacy. What makes legacy different from influence is that legacy outlives performance. It doesn't require a stage. It shows up in systems. It survives your mood. It's embedded in everything you touch, teach, build, protect, and refuse to betray. It's who you become when no one's watching, and what you leave behind without needing credit. This is what the black sheep learns to embody. Not for show, but for survival. And eventually, for service. Because when you survive by being yourself, you become a blueprint for others to do the same. That's how mentoring begins, informally, quietly, before it's professionalized, before it's monetized, before it's branded. You mentor others just by being an example of what's possible when someone doesn't fold. And the moment someone looks at you, not in awe, but in recognition, you'll realize your authenticity didn't just save you. It built a bridge. That bridge is your legacy. Legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about becoming useful. It's about building the thing you never had. The parent you needed, the leader you craved, the clarity you spent years fighting for. It's about removing the unnecessary struggle for those who come next. You don't need to be famous to be foundational. You don't need to be followed to be formative. You just need to be consistent. And consistency, for the black sheep, often comes after years of chaos. You weren't taught how to build. You were taught how to survive. But authenticity gave you a different blueprint, one that doesn't rely on external approval. One that teaches you to build what you didn't inherit. Let's talk about structure. Legacy requires it. And most black sheep were robbed of it. They didn't get the mentorship. They weren't shown the steps. They weren't handed a map, they had to make one. This is why legacy building for the black sheep is a spiritual act. It's not just professional, it's ancestral. You are interrupting generational dysfunction with every aligned structure you create. Whether it's a business, a body of work, a way of parenting, a way of relating, or a code you refuse to break, you're stabilizing what was previously shattered. And when you do it long enough, it starts to echo. Others feel it. They find themselves less alone. And not because you performed, but because you persisted. This is why legacy cannot be faked. Because you didn't get here through mimicry. You got here through mastery of self, of wounds, of wisdom earned through pain. That mastery is what you now have to offer. And it's sacred. Authenticity at this level is rare. It's not trendy. It's not performative. It's not seasonal. It's lifestyle deep. Nervous system deep. It lives in how you treat people, not just what you post. It lives in what you'll say no to, even if it costs you clout. It lives in how you build systems that don't extract but heal. This is where spiritual entrepreneurship often enters, because the black sheep doesn't just create to be seen, they create to survive. Then they create to serve. Then they create to scale. And eventually, that scaling becomes sustainability, not just for them, but for everyone who connects to the work. This is what it means to build what you never had. When your work becomes a lighthouse, not a spotlight. When your voice doesn't demand attention, but commands resonance. When people feel seen not because you marketed to them, but because you remembered them. Because you used your exile as an education, and your education as a gift. That's legacy. Not everyone will understand the weight of it, but the ones who do will carry it forward. Your impact will move through them, not just around them. Because you weren't selling hype. You were modeling healing, and healing spreads. So if you are in the process of building, don't rush the visibility. Refine the integrity. If you are still walking through your own reconstruction, know that this is exactly what gives your future systems strength. Your lived experience is not a liability. It's the infrastructure of your offering. Every time you choose not to water yourself down, every time you choose to keep building, even when no one's watching, every time you model the truth instead of just talking about it, you're laying legacy. And you don't need to chase the label, because legacy doesn't declare itself. It demonstrates itself, over time, in layers, through people, across generations. Authenticity isn't a trend, it's a template. And the more you live it, the more inevitable your impact becomes. You didn't try to become legendary. You just never stopped being yourself, and that was enough. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation and leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival. It's about awakening, about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.